What are your thoughts on the metaverse, which like takes technology to the next level and puts us in like a virtual world? Like, do you see that as being dangerous, hopeful for humanity? Like, what's your view on that?
Maybe we're in the metaverse right now. It's just metaverse is all the way down. I mean, anyone who starts a car company thinking it's an easy way to make money is a fool. There are only two car companies that have not gone bankrupt in the history of the United States, and that's Ford and Tesla. And Tesla came within inches of going bankrupt multiple times, as did SpaceX. Tesla's value is, and SpaceX's value is not up to me, it's up to investors. And they decided Tesla was worth $1 trillion in the public market. So, and I own 20% of the company. So
you're not apologizing right now? You're not going to look into the camera and say, I'm so sorry?
Look in the camera right now.
I'm just trying to explain, like, I don't think people necessarily understand.
They don't, yeah.
That this is not, some function of sort of hoarding or something. It's simply that, I own 20% of the company that became very valuable as decided by external investors. And so 20% of a $1 trillion valuation is $200 billion. And I've said at various times that I think the stock price is too high, but the investors just ignored that. I'm like, okay, I literally said it's too high. And they just kept making that price higher. So I'm like,
tell them our value is too high.
I came to North America when I was 17, just by myself. And I had like a few $1,000s in traveler's checks, back when traveler's checks were a thing, in Canadian dollars. I landed in Montreal. I have some family in Canada, and my mom's uncle lived in Montreal, but like we didn't even know his phone number, so I landed in Montreal, and my mom says, I just got a letter back from my uncle, and he's in Minnesota or something. So I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know what to do now. So I just stayed in a youth hostel and like bought a bus ticket across Canada, and I worked in various like odd jobs and stuff. Worked on my mom's cousin's farm, wheat farm in Saskatchewan for 6 weeks. That's where I had my 18th birthday, actually. Worked in the lumber mill, chainsawed logs, and did various odd jobs. And then went to college in Canada for a couple of years. I paid my own way through college, by the way. But in Canada, it's like easier because the college is more subsidized, and I was a Canadian citizen through my mom. So, and I got some scholarships and loans and stuff, and then I applied to the University of Pennsylvania, and didn't think I'd be able to go because tuition is really high, but they gave me a scholarship and loans and stuff, so I was able to go there. I graduated with about $100,000 in student debt, and I was going to do grad studies at Stanford, and decided to put that on hold to try starting an internet company. I tried to get a job at Netscape, but they didn't. I'd send my resume and didn't get any response. So I was like, okay, I guess I can't get a job there are only a few internet companies and can get a job at any of them. So I was like, I guess I want to do something with the internet. I got to start my own company. But I ended up writing the first maps and directions on the internet. I wrote it personally. Maps, directions, yellow pages, white pages, on a puny computer, like with hardly any. So you had to be like, the code had to be super tight. I even have some patents on like maps and directions and yellow pages and white pages and stuff from ages ago. They're lapsed now, but that company ended up getting bought by Compaq for about $300 million. And I own 7% of the company, so I got like $20 million from that. Put most of it into X.com, which merged with Confinity to create PayPal. And then I got about $180 million from that. And I put all of that into SpaceX, Tesla, and SolarCity. I just basically kept all the chips on the table and just like, let's play another round. And most people take the chips off the table, or at least some of their chips. And then SpaceX and Tesla ended up being valuable, and that's where I am. But the reason for SpaceX and Tesla is, Tesla, if you say like, how would you assess the historical good of Tesla? I'd say it's the degree to which Tesla accelerated sustainable energy. this is not about like trying to enrich myself. I do not live a life of conspicuous consumption. I work, very long hours, but I think what Tesla's doing is important to the future, and that's why I keep doing it. And I think it's something that I think is Tesla increases the probability that the future will be good for humanity, and then for SpaceX. I think it's important that we take the actions, like that we become a spacefaring civilization and a multi-planet species. This is an exciting, inspiring future. You need to have things that, when you wake up in the morning, you're excited about the future. Why live if it's all about solving problems or being miserable? Why live? So they got to be things that are inspiring, that get you in the heart. And I think space is one of those things. So, look at the Apollo program and, sending people to the moon in '69. And wasn't that a great thing for all of humanity? Great thing. And if you ask people, what are some of the greatest things that humanity's ever done, that would be one of them. And I think, around the world, people would agree with that. But anyway, the point is, we want to have an exciting, inspiring future. And one where we are a spacefaring civilization and a multi-planet species, I think it is a much more exciting and inspiring future than one where we are forever confined to Earth and never go back to the moon. And the moon was our high water mark, and that's all we ever did. That's depressing. And there's also, from a long-term basis, if we're a multi-planet species, it's like life insurance for life itself, not just for humans, but for all the creatures on Earth, because we bring them with us. And they can't build spaceships, so we're in effect the steward of life, and we can make Mars like another planet with life on it. It is it's probably a dangerous analogy to use, but it's a bit like Noah's Ark, but we'd bring more than two of every creature, because it's a little incestuous, frankly. I mean, just do how does this work?
Second generation.
And did he hate the dinosaurs? What's the... why is it like F you to the dinosaurs?
I'm gonna get answers.
Why? It's like pro-incest, bad on dinosaurs. I don't get it anyway. And it would have to be a very big vote. So, but there's it's a metaphor perhaps, I don't know. So anyway, there's some risk, especially over a long period of time, that something calamitous would happen to Earth, and if we're just on one planet, that would be the end of life itself. And certainly the sun is slowly expanding, so the Earth's roughly 4.5 billion years old. Some people might disagree with that, but it appears to be that way. Roughly 500 million years, the sun will expand to make Earth probably uninhabitable. In 1 billion years, definitely uninhabitable. So basically, if intelligent life had taken 10% longer to evolve on Earth, then we would never have evolved at all, because it would be destroyed, because the oceans would boil and we wouldn't be able to exist. So, but yeah, technically, being a multi-planet species would increase the probable lifespan of civilization and life as we know it. Humans don't live forever. But just because we don't live forever does not mean that civilization cannot live much longer than we do. Civilization lives much longer than any individual human. So this is not about escaping to Mars. This is simply, I will die probably long before Mars is a self-sustaining civilization. It's just, I think, something we should do in order to have a much longer probable lifespan of civilization. And it's interesting and exciting, and Mars is like an essential next step to there are these filters. They're called the great filters, and because you have to say where are the aliens? It's like the Fermi paradox. Where are the aliens? If the universe is 13.8 billion years old, shouldn't they be everywhere by now? And I'm not aware of any evidence for aliens. People ask me about that too. Where are the aliens? I'm like, man, if anyone would know about evidence of aliens, it would be me. And I've seen nothing. So I think it may have been Carl Sagan who said, there's, like, we're either alone in the galaxy, or there are a lot of aliens, and each answer is arguably equally terrifying. It's like, hey, we found aliens are on their way. Too bad it's the invasion fleet. So I don't know. It's like, where are the aliens? Like, maybe there aren't any in this galaxy, and maybe what we have here is a very, very rare situation. A brief flickering of consciousness in the dark, like a little candle in a vast darkness, and we should not let that little candle go out. The robots are not the scary part. The scary part is AGI, or artificial general intelligence, digital superintelligence that far exceeds human intelligence. If there's a digital superintelligence that is just vastly smarter than the smartest human, we could lose control of it, and then it could do something bad potentially. These things are just probabilities; they're not certainties. So it's not the robot. Like I said, it's not the robots; it's the digital superintelligence to be concerned about. I think this is definitely one of the issues that we need to be concerned about as an existential risk. I think we should have a regulatory agency that oversees advanced AI, because generally, like, I do think there are important roles for the government, and one of those roles is in regulation of industry to make sure that that the companies are not making shortcuts that endanger the public. So, the FAA has done generally a great job of ensuring that aircraft are safe. I think there should be a regulatory agency to oversee anything that is a danger to the public. And I think AGI could be a danger to the public, so therefore should have some oversight. And normally regulatory agencies are very reactive. Like for seatbelts, for example, which lack of seatbelts caused, 10 million deaths worldwide. I mean, a massive number. And the car industry fought seatbelts for a very long time. And eventually, after many deaths, the Department of Transport, NHTSA, which oversees this regulatory body for cars, said all cars have to have seatbelts. That you can't just not have a seatbelt. But that, it took 15 years or something, or maybe longer. Maybe 20 years before seatbelts were mandated. So, and then baby seats are a lot of kids and babies died because they're just like sitting on this, on a seat with nothing. I mean, I kind of grew up sitting on a seat with nothing.
Yeah, we'd ride in the bed of the truck.
Yeah, seriously, I rode in the bed of a pickup truck for hours.
Survivor bias or something. I was fine, but
yeah, I mean, I was fine, but if there was an accident, it was game over.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So you do see some good in government when it comes to regulation and stuff like that. But you don't generally think the government can spend your money more effectively than you can.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like generally I'm like, I think pretty moderate. I'm not like an extreme libertarian. I think there are roles for the government that make sense. Like, I don't think we necessarily want like a private army or private police force or private. Yeah, I think there's certain things that are probably the right role for the government. But anything done by the government is going to be inefficient because the government is a monopoly. Like, people that don't like corporations should not somehow think that the government is much better because the government is a corporation in the limit. It is the ultimate corporation with a monopoly on violence. So like, I think the right role for the government is like to be act in a regulatory capacity, we should aspire to have the government be a limited actor in the economy. So you could say like, what percentage of economic output should be government, and maybe a third or something like that. Once you start getting above 50% government, I think that's problematic. So you can look at countries like East and West Germany, North and South Korea, and there was just essentially an arbitrary line drawn out to divide the countries. And East Germany was like kind of 100% government. West Germany was, I don't know, probably at least 40% government. They're like, relatively socialist. And yet the GDP per capita of West Germany was, I think, 5 times higher than East Germany. So that just shows you just how big of a difference it is if you have like something that's close to half government versus 100% government. Private sector is probably a factor of 10 more efficient than the government. And this is also true of just generally. If you have like a monopolistic private corporation, then the forcing function for serving the customer is weak. But at least private corporations can go bankrupt, and the government cannot go bankrupt unless the people go bankrupt. Like basically, unless it exhausts extracting money from the population. So
Well, they're trying their best. So.
yeah, it's just so it's just you want to just knowing that the government is inefficient as any large monopolistic corporation would be, and it is the ultimate large monopolistic corporation. We should minimize how much the government does. Keep it to what is essential, and not go beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, the conservative concern with that is you start to give them, you give them a foothold, and then they're just going to keep going. Like you give them a regulatory capacity over something like AGI, and then they're just going to start to, overreach more and more, because that's what we've seen in the past. You give them an inch and they take a mile.
Yeah, but I mean, does anyone realistically want to delete the FAA or the FDA?
Probably somebody.
We got an anarchist here.
We got an anarchist in the corner. Right?
I mean, it used to be if you go to the store, like you buy some whatever steak or something from the store, and it's like poisonous, or like we take for granted that the food we buy is at the store is not going to kill us, because some company cut costs and decided that, having E. coli and salmonella is okay, who cares, type of thing. So I think, like we take for granted that the food we buy at the stores is not poisonous, and that the drugs we buy, that is they're extremely unlikely. Like the drugs will be consistent, and they will do what they say they're going to do. Which, except for the sort of vitamin supplements industry, which can basically is unregulated, and so they can say things that are not true, and people still buy it. Anyway, so it's like I think do you really want, like, you can think of like you want some kind of referee on the field. So like for like it's like if you're watching, say, a football game or something like basketball. There's referees, okay? So would the games be better or worse without a referee? They'd be worse, So I think like the role of a referee in games is important, and so the government's role as a referee, I think, is also important. You just don't want to have the government be kind of on the field as a player. It would be weird if the referees just suddenly started playing ball, Mm-hmm. Probably not. The game would not be as good. So.
Yeah. Well, and other things that make me think you've never seen a sci-fi movie before, you have Neuralink, so you can put things in people's brain or something. What's that like?
What's that like? Is
it
cool?
Do you like it?
Do you like it?
Well, try it. You might like it. Neuralink is in part, in fact, the sort of the reason I created Neuralink was long-term as a risk mitigation for digital superintelligence, in that if we are able to effectively achieve symbiosis with digital intelligence, then we're sort of the collective human will is better able to steer things in a direction that we'd like, or even with benign AI, at least go along for the ride. So, because even with a benign superintelligence, if it's so much smarter than us that that it really can't even communicate effectively because it's so fast, and then like talking to us is like talking to a tree, because if you do a stop motion on like a tree is communicating with its environment just very slowly.
That's how I feel right now.
It's looking for water. The tree roots are looking for water. The branches are looking for sun, and the tree has movement. It's just very slow, and so and we're already at this point partially a cyborg. We're de facto sort of a cyborg in that our phones and computers and applications are a digital extension of ourselves. At this point, like if somebody leaves their phone behind, it's like missing limb syndrome. The phone is almost like a part of you. But the issue with that symbiosis is that the data rate is extremely slow. So like how fast can you communicate with your phone using 2 thumbs? 10 bits per second. It's very low, the data rate. And if computers can, and which they can, communicate at a billion bits per second or more, and we're communicating with them at 10 bits per second, then that's just an extremely slow communication link, and it inhibits symbiosis with our sort of tertiary digital layer. Like so, we've got sort of basically like a primal layer, which is like our limbic system. Basically, it's our instincts and a lot of our emotions, and it's kind of like the reptile brain situation. And then you've got the cortex, which is like the thinking part of the brain, planning and whatnot. So that's like the second layer, and then our phones and computers are our tertiary layer. But there's just a bandwidth limitation. We're very slow to communicate. So, but with a neural link, you can increase the communication bandwidth by many orders of magnitude, maybe by 1,000 or more. Along the way, Neuralink can solve a lot of brain issues. Like if you got, so if you got like a severed spine or something. So like one of the first application we're looking to solve is implanting Neuralink in someone who is a quadriplegic or tetraplegic. So like they can't move their arms and legs, or maybe not even really move most of their face. They can like maybe blink or something like that. Like Stephen Hawking, or he didn't have to have severed spine, but there are various mechanical and other mechanical breakages or diseases that break the link between your brain and body. And Neuralink can solve that. It can certainly, we're confident Neuralink can enable someone who is a tetraplegic to operate a phone or a computer faster than someone who has working hands. And I'm increasingly confident that we can implant a second Neuralink device. So one that accesses the motor cortex and the somatosensory cortex, and then a second one that is past where the injury is. So if you've got a severed, but basically where are the neurons still functional, and implant a second Neuralink device and have the 2 devices talk to each other and just transfer the signals across where
it broke.
Yeah, because it's like a broken circuit.
Right.
So you've got a broken circuit. You basically just do a signal transfer between the 2, and you don't necessarily even need to know what all those signals are. You just need to transfer the signals. So just like if you have like an Ethernet cable, you don't need to know what's on the Ethernet cable for the cable to work, or a wireless Ethernet, from one wireless to Ethernet, Wi-Fi box to another wireless Ethernet Wi-Fi box. You don't need to know what the contents of the signal are in order to transfer the signal. So I'm confident that such a thing is possible. I'm not saying we will do it. I don't want to set unreasonable expectations, but I would say I'm certain that it is possible, and we will try to make it happen, which would then enable people to walk again and use their hands, and I think long term probably restore full body functionality to somebody who has none.